Hello, good morning y'all. Darla real estate agent with a real broker in South Louisiana, servicing all of Louisiana. If you ever need anything from the buy side or the sell side, get in touch with me. I would love to represent you. Here is a statement that I receive from potential sellers quite often. So let's talk about this. Something to keep in mind as a seller is that inspections are something that every buyer has the right to have done once their house is under contract. So if you're the seller and your house is for sale and you come to an agreement with the potential buyer, they have as part of their contract what's called their due diligence or their inspection period. Usually, that's anywhere between 7 to 14 days. Sometimes it's shorter, sometimes it's longer, but that's about the approximate time. During that time, the buyer has the right to have your home inspected by anyone they choose, as many inspections as they choose, and it can be a real licensed inspector, it could be a carpenter, it could be someone in their family who they feel comfortable with having it inspected. That is their right. And so your goal as the seller is to make sure that your home is in tip-top condition so that the inspector is not so inclined to really do more digging and investigating. So remember this, first impressions are huge. If you have done a great job of maintaining your home, it will be obvious to the inspector from the minute they walk into the home, right? But something that sellers say to me quite often is, my home is not ready because it's going to fail inspection. Okay, so number one thing to remember is there's no such thing as failing or passing. Every formal licensed inspector uses the same exact checklist that the state of Louisiana requires. So they're all looking at the roof. They're all looking at the plumbing. They're all looking at the foundation. They're all looking at the electrical. They're all looking at those kinds of things. They're not looking for cosmetic. So they're not looking for ugly. They're not looking for scuffed up paint or maybe an ugly paint job or something like that. That's not their job. They're looking for items that are unsafe, things that may be deemed not up to code. They're looking for, let's say if they're on your roof, they're looking for loose or missing shingles. They're looking for loose or missing or rotten fascia board. Those are the kinds of things that they're looking for. There's no such thing as pass-fail, but there is going to be a key on the inspection. And most inspectors key it this way. Red are items that are either not up to code, that they recommend really in dire need to be fixed or repaired. Then there's yellow, which is usually marginal. It's items that they think they would recommend that need to be fixed but are maybe not as major. And then of course green means it all checked out well, and that's usually the key. So if you are thinking about selling, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that get flagged on most homes, all right? If you have a staircase outside of any kind, your front steps, it needs a handrail on the right side. Any kind of steps needs a handrail outside. That's such an easy fix. Number two, you cannot have any open junction boxes in your attic. That's a quick, easy fix as well. You can't have empty spaces inside your breaker box. So if there are holes where faceplates need to be, get those put in. If your buyer has any kind of government loan, which listen, I would say is probably about 95% of the population, which means most people are using either an FHA loan, a VA loan, a USDA loan, some people call it RD. One of those government type loans, after your house is inspected by the buyer, the bank is then going to send out an appraiser, which is going to do their own inspection. And so your home, if the buyer has some kind of government loan, can't have any kind of rotten wood, can't have peeling paint. Again, it can't have missing handrails. You can't have any broken glass panes. So if you are thinking about selling, one thing I would say that people miss a whole lot is when you're putting items underneath the sinks, a lot of times those pipes get loose, and then you might have a very, very small leak, especially under bathrooms or kitchen sinks where there's not a whole lot of space, but you have a whole lot of products under there. From moving them in and out and just bumping against those pipes, they tend to get loose, and that's a common item that's flagged, where there's just a small leak underneath a sink somewhere, all right? If your house is on piers, one thing the inspector is going to do is turn on all the water in the whole house and then walk and look underneath the house, probably crawl underneath the house and see if there's any kind of drips or leaks at all. And listen, sometimes it's just very, very, very minor, but if you look underneath your house, if it's on piers and you see a puddle of water, see if there's a pipe that leads to that puddle of water, because if there is a pipe right there, it's probably because you have a slow, steady leak. So as a seller, all the things that you live in the house, right? You know the things that are broken. You know the things that are going to get flagged. As we live in our houses, we kind of tend to just get lackadaisical and things kind of just get brushed off to the side. If you are a seller, you get one chance to make a first impression. So you want to make sure that when the buyers walk through your home, they believe and they feel like and they get the impression that you took amazing care of your home, and you want to give the same impression to the inspector. And then once you get their inspections, so remember, as the buyer, they have the right to ask you to fix anything. They have the right to ask you to lower the price if they find something that's major. You as the seller then get to decide, what are you going to do? If they ask you for 10 items, are you going to fix 5? You're going to fix 8? You're going to fix none? You have the decision to make. But then once you get through all of that, the appraisal is another inspection that this one is pass-fail. The appraisal inspection is pass-fail. So if your home is under contract with a buyer who has an FHA loan and you have cracked window panes, and the appraiser flags those cracked window panes needing to be fixed, if you do not fix them, then the buyer cannot get their loan, and therefore they cannot close on the house. All right? So remember this, the inspection, the first inspection is not an appraisal, and it's not pass or fail. The appraiser, if it's a government loan, has his own checklist of things to look for. And listen, one and the same, kind of similar to the inspection. If your house is inspected and they find rotten wood or peeling paint, they're probably going to flag those things, right? And it's the same things the appraiser is going to flag if it's a government loan. Conventional loans, very, very small percentage of buyers get conventional loans or just regular local bank loans. Those appraisal inspections are not quite as nitpicky. Not quite as nitpicky. But listen, as a seller, just keep in mind, you cannot pass or fail that first inspection, but you also only get one chance to make a first impression. So if you know, especially if you're not a very handy person or your husband's not a very handy person, and you know that you want to sell your house and there are some things that need to get done, listen, I work with lots of different local carpenters, lots of different local people who can get that list done for you. So if you're not sure where to go or who to ask, give me a call or text me or message me and say, listen, this is where I live. Who do you recommend in my area that can get these little things done for me because I want to sell my house, right? Or if you're not sure if something is even worth repairing or worth fixing, or you're going to get the money back, give me a call or message me. I'd love to have a conversation with you and give you my opinion. Listen, in the last 5.5 years, I've closed over 400 transactions. I've represented people from the buy side and the sell side. Literally, I have seen every single thing that is going to get flagged by an inspector or is going to get flagged by an appraiser. Nothing would surprise me, I guarantee you. Y'all have a wonderful rest of the week. Y'all, this weather in South Louisiana is absolutely gorgeous. I am going to be outside today as much as I can, and then I actually have an inspection early tomorrow morning with a buyer that I represent, I have a feeling this one's probably not going to have much of anything on the inspection. This person is buying a house that is in tip-top condition, absolutely gorgeous. That's going to be a great one. And the worst thing to happen, listen, from the buyer's standpoint, is if you believe that the house looks like it's in perfect condition and you spend $500 or $600 on an inspection, the worst case scenario would be that they find absolutely nothing and then you feel confident about moving forward. If you're a buyer, you want to have the home that you're buying inspected by a formal inspector, a licensed inspector. And I don't care if the house is 1 day old, 1 year old, or 100 years old. Get it inspected. If you do not know an inspector, give me a call. I'd love to recommend one. And listen, also a great thing is this. For people who inherit homes and you haven't lived in the home, or the home has been vacant for a few years and you're just not sure if it even has anything wrong with it, a great idea from the standpoint of the seller would be to have a pre-inspection. Have a pre-inspection done of that home, and then whatever needs to be repaired, get it repaired before it hits the market, right? That would look great on your part as a seller. And I know it's not a very common thing to do in Louisiana, but in other states, it's a common practice where sellers have pre-inspections done. That way it's inspected, they know all the things that are broken, they get them fixed, and they feel confident going into the house selling it, knowing that everything is pretty much move-in ready. So that's always a good option. Y'all have a great week, and remember this, in real estate, there are no stupid questions. I was a teacher in my previous life, so I love answering questions. I love helping people problem solve. So there are no stupid questions. Ask all the questions that you have, whether you're thinking about buying, you're thinking about selling, or listen, even if you're thinking about getting into real estate, I'd surely love to have a conversation with you.